Studying the Word of God can be difficult. One of the easiest ways to study the Bible is one verse at a time, but at times it can seem overwhelming. Our goal in this podcast is to wrestle with the text and dive in deeper. We pray that this edifies you and empowers you to fall deeper in love with the Bible and Jesus. Welcome to Everyday Theology. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Theology. My name is Guy Parkerson. I'm here with my friends John Muth.
Hello.
Sean Newby. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, thanks.
And my good friend Ian Stamps.
What's up?
Oh.
What are you doing?
Can't even do it right. Guy found buttons on his keyboard.
He discovered the fun things.
I'm going to try not to wear everybody out with those because they do get obnoxious.
Too late.
Yeah. I guess we are only like 1 minute into the podcast.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How are you guys today? We are totally unprepared at this, so we're just
Great.
We're just kind of going at it.
Great, grand, wonderful.
Fantastic.
We're going to talk about fathers.
How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, that's good.
Nobody
good.
cares. Nobody cares how Guy is.
Yeah, I know.
I care how you are, Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You all are good fathers.
Well, thank you.
I do. John, I think you have the youngest out of all of us with as far as the children.
Yeah, I do.
What's your youngest?
5.
What's your favorite part of being a father?
I thought you were going to say, what's your favorite kid?
Oh, God.
Don't answer that.
My favorite part of being a father is there's a lot of things, but I've learned so much, I think, about my relationship with God and how he must view people, and from being a dad, like his level of patience. And so I think my favorite part of being a dad, is just how it's helped me to grow in my faith. And also all the, we just have a lot of fun. My kids are hilarious, and they ask such funny questions, and they're goofy.
It's genetic.
It is. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of goofy.
a little bit.
I had the disadvantage of raising 2 children outside of a godly household in a godly household.
Before you were a believer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, oh gosh, just the experience alone is, it's mind-blowing. The things I can remember, even as far as watching Natalie give birth, you look at that as such a different perspective, like what a gift from God. This is absolutely incredible. Before it was so kind of utilitarian, kind of robotic. It was like, and then you get, you look at the way I raise my children now with a different perspective as far as patience is concerned. And it's mind-blowing. And I have to say the outcome has been sadly different too. There's a level of respect that the other 2 have for me, that the older 2 that I raised in a godly. Now, granted, my oldest son, him and I had major problems in the past. A lot of that stemmed from me being a jerk.
Sure.
Now we have completely rekindled our relationship, and now he sees the difference in me today versus what I was. And I wasn't I wasn't abusive. I was more absentee, Newbie, you had kind of a similar experience too. You weren't really following Christ for your
Most of my children's childhood,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you still, I would have called myself a Christian though, but there was nothing in my heart really about it. But I went to church, I did the motions. I actually took my kids to church, but there was a lot missing there, day to day. Yeah, I wasn't a great example. Ian's sermon was pretty convicting to me, and now my kids, thankfully, are fantastic. I mean, they're both adults now, but they are fantastic kids. No credit to me at all. Like somehow they managed to grow up terrific without me. But
well, those statistics that you briefly went over before your sermon started was, I got a little emotional when I wrote down a couple of them. 72% of all adolescent murders stem from a fatherless home. 60% of rapists. That is,
it's mind-blowing to think that this is the social ill that fuels all the other ones. It really does matter.
Almost like the first swing if you were going to chop a tree down, right?
Yes, something like that. See, we talk. We have coffee and talk.
Why is that funny?
45 minutes.
Because you were late. That's why you were late.
I wasn't late. I just don't come for coffee. I don't drink coffee.
And then Guy and Sean
I
talk
stay in
about
bed
their lame
longer.
inside jokes that we talked about an hour ago on the podcast, and no one understands what they're talking about.
Don't announce that I was late. I got here precisely when I meant to, like a wizard in Lord of the Rings.
I'm sorry I interjected that, but I had to. So
Yes, it's heartbreaking to see this as the reality that so much falls on the shoulders of dads, a good and godly dad. You cannot dismiss the role that dads play.
You almost have to think, what would our society look like if fathers just did their job?
Oh man, it wouldn't be what it currently is. That's for sure.
I saw something that was like 12.5 million kids. I can't remember where I wrote that out. They don't have dads in their life.
Yeah, of students, kindergarten through 12th grade, I want to say it's almost 18 million.
18.4 million children
Yeah.
live in fatherless households. Yep, that's a
Yeah.
2021 Census Bureau report. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really surprising. I mean, you're talking about a whole lot of kids who experience a whole lot of brokenness and then do a lot of damage in the world. Again, the stats are what they are. Not every kid who grows up with a single mom is going to turn out to be a sociopath. That's not the case at all. But the stats are what they are.
And it's getting worse. You said that they'd quadrupled since.
Yeah, it's 1960 went from 8% to over 33%. It's not getting better; it's getting worse because of 1960. We're at that point, culture was on the cusp of the sexual revolution. Well, now we're fully on the other side of the sexual revolution. And what that involves is complete and total sexual freedom to do whatever you want and all the consequences that come with it, but no responsibility. So dads aren't taking responsibility for the consequences of their sexual actions with women and have abandoned their children to be raised by their mothers or whoever else. And I mean, it is devastating to our culture.
And there's people getting behind this. They think it's better. I've got 3 quotes from, secular professors, and it's astounding that they don't see the numbers that we're seeing. It's not what we're seeing. I mean, this is government.
Yeah, the research says what it
It
says.
says what it says.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're just flat out promoting this fatherless homes. A lot of it stems from radical feminists too.
It absolutely does. I mean, you've got a lot of the the genderism things that are happening now that you can't say that a male presence in the home matters that much. It's like, well, the research dictates that it does.
Yeah.
It just does. Whether you like it or not, or think that's fair or not, that's inconsequential. It absolutely does. This matters. Whether it's a biological father, obviously that's preferable. But if there's not a biological father in the picture, because some dads pass away and and their kids are little. Well, I mean, that's not the dad's fault for being irresponsible or anything like that. But what about a grandfather? What about an uncle? What about an elder at a church? There are certainly opportunities because my heart breaks for single moms. The plight that they have to deal with is fairly overwhelming. And many of them will say, the challenge of that is I have to be both mom and dad. And I tell them, no, you don't. You can't be dad. You'll make a terrible dad because you're a mom. So just be a really good mom and have someone else step in to be that responsible male presence, whoever that might be, a brother, whoever, because you cannot be that. God has not designed you to fulfill a fatherly role.
You're fighting an entire culture
Absolutely
with
the
words
case.
like that, though, because that is so unpopular today.
And here's what's interesting. When I say that to single moms, it's relief for them because the culture places that burden on their shoulder of, oh, now I have to be dad too. because it sounds good. Oh, you're both mom and dad. Wow, that's bad. That's a pressure that women literally cannot handle. So think of single dads. I have to be a mom and dad. With all due respect to Mr. Mom and all those kinds of Mrs. Doubtfire, all those kinds of things that
we weren't designed for that.
Normalize that. You can't be a mom. Sean, you would make a terrible mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I did.
Yeah. That's not a thing. So once you kind of find the freedom of that and move into God's design, we have an adopted daughter. The reason that her biological mother made an adoption plan was because during this whole process, she became a believer of the pregnancy and teenage pregnancy and all that kind of stuff. She becomes a believer and starts growing in her faith and sees God's design for the family and knows, I am doing a disservice to my child because I cannot provide for her God's design for the family. And that's a large part of the motivation for making an adoption plan for our daughter, who now lives in a godly home with a mom and a dad and siblings and all of that. So what tremendous respect I have for people who do such things, to have that conviction of there's no way anytime soon I would be able to give her what God has designed her to have. Therefore, I'm going to put her in the environment so she can have that because it's better for her. And it is. Again, the research says what it says. It's a fact.
Yeah, I look back at my dad's childhood. My dad, his father died when he was 3 years old. And, when I was doing a little bit of this research, I kept noticing over and over and over in all these articles that I was reading, they were saying that if you come from a family with a mother and a father, they use the word privileged over and over over again. Mm-hmm. And I thought, my dad was not privileged by any means. And yet he defeated all of these statistics. I don't know, it is odd that it seems like the cards were stacked against him. And yet, he wasn't any of these things.
Yeah. It's not a determiner
Sure.
of destiny. If you don't have a dad or you don't have a good dad or anything, that's not.
He had a really good mom, though.
That's not the case at all.
Contributor.
Yes. And helped with all that. But how you phrased it, I think is spot on. The cards were stacked against him. He had to overcome factors and fight battles that he normally would not have had to fight. It made it harder for him to be a responsible man and do all this because he did not have that growing up. So how much better for our kids and the next generation if dads step up and dad a little bit better than they're currently dadding. Like that? See what I did there?
I did.
Yeah.
The dad.
I did. And I think
We turned it into a verb. See, it's funny, Sean, because we took a noun and we turned it into a verb.
That's the first swing, man,
That's the fact.
on the tree.
Thank you.
he's getting better.
Did I do it right?
Anytime.
You did. It's the first swing of the axe.
Something that I've come to learn from dadding is that
It's going to catch on.
you
Going
often
viral.
it's hard. Being a parent is hard.
Yeah.
And it feels like this responsibility sometimes that it's like, man, this is just too much. But really, I've come to see it. It is a sometimes overwhelming responsibility, but it's also such a gift that I've come to see that being a dad has met this deep need inside of me that I didn't know was even there. And God has, so they are gifts from the God, not just in the sense that, they're kids, they're children they're a miracle that the children are made and born, but they're a gift in the sense that they satisfy a deep need in me, that I didn't know I had.
Yeah.
It helps you. It helps paint the picture of God as a father too.
Yeah.
When you're a father, something I struggled with a lot was, obviously always heard God the Father and him depicted as a father, in church and stuff. And yet I could never equate, okay, well, if God's a father, as a father myself, like I couldn't imagine ever being so mad at my child that I would condemn them to hell for all eternity. And it wasn't until much later I put that together that like, well, only the believers are his children.
Yeah.
Well, not
Yeah. Not everybody's God's
contrary
child.
contrary to popular belief, we are not all children of God.
Right.
We're made in His image, but we're not all
That's
children
different.
of God.
That's a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Because
it's
of
not
loving-
that-
right.
Wait.
You'll hear that question as how could God
What?
send His children to hell? I mean, but I didn't understand that early on.
Yeah. God has one natural child. That's the Lord Jesus Christ. The rest of us are adopted.
Yep. And only believers are
And it's
adopted.
only believers. It's not.
I don't know if you knew that or not.
I read that somewhere.
What about John 3:16? For God so loved the world that he saved his only begotten son.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. Well, it's
Isn't
not
that-
when you actually study it, but yeah, but
Who's the world?
who's the world?
I thought that was in First Colossians.
Thank you for bringing us around to that.
I'm unplugging his mic. Noelle and I were having a conversation last night. I was talking about this podcast, and I said, she was
Who's
talking
Noelle
about,
for our listeners?
Noelle is my youngest daughter. She's 20 years old in nursing school. Super smart kid, great kid. But she was talking about feminism, and I said, I think your mother is a feminist, but she's not a radical feminist.
Yeah.
She makes a great living. She works hard. She's a provider. She comes home. She loves you guys. I'm like, that is a feminist. But when you radicalize it and you say, I don't need a man. No, you just stepped off the ledge. You're not a feminist at that point.
Yep.
You're an
Crossed the
idiot.
line.
Sorry,
That's the next step.
I have been listening to Ian too long.
You're not you're an idiot.
Well, because I think
Okay.
is compatibilism a biblical term?
No,
It's not.
it's not. It's like it's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's in First Colossians.
That's in
what-
First
I should have
Colossians.
saved it for
Yeah,
that.
It's in there. It's
too-
because so I think you're right. I
blew it.
So I had a family member growing up who dated a guy for the sole purpose of getting a child from him. She wanted to get pregnant. She wanted to be a mom, and did so, and then immediately dumped him. And has to this day raised the child alone. And her comments around that time centered around, I don't need a man. Okay, fine, good for you. Your child does. Whether you do or not is secondary to the needs of your child. Your child needs him in their life, whether you like it or not. So you knock off. I mean, it's utter selfishness to say, all right, I'm just going to take your DNA contribution to all of this, but I don't want anything to do with you. That is a form of irresponsibility and a passive form of abuse for a child that cannot be quantified. That's just awful. So you've got a child who grew up without a dad in the home, simply because I don't need no man. Grow up.
Yeah.
Grow up. First of all, you do, and you just don't think you do, but you do, because this is how God has designed you. Of course you do, which is why you couldn't have a baby on your own. You
Funny
can't,
how that works.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You do need the opposite side there. But even if you want to be independent, cool, good for you. Your child can't be. They can't do that. You've handicapped your child because of that. You've set up roadblocks that you shouldn't have done.
You've stacked the cards.
Stack the cards.
I would
Stack the
even say,
deck.
but that it may have
Chop the
sounded harsh
tree.
when I said a woman is an idiot if she says she's a radical feminist. But I would say the same thing about a man. If a man,
Oh, absolutely.
is there a word for a radical?
Chauvinist.
Yeah,
Radical,
there you go.
Idiot. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
would
same
say
word.
the exact same thing. If a man,
Masochist.
ever said, "I don't need a
Masochist.
woman," I'd be
That's a
like,
different thing.
Yeah. Well,
I depend on Natalie
You
for
don't see a
so
lot
much.
of men
Well,
arguing
you've
they
got
don't
that
need women
now.
to help raise children.
You've got this movement of young men on social media who are talking about manhood and what is it that they're talking about? It's all greed. Make as much money as you possibly can. This is what manhood is. sleep with as many women as you possibly can.
Women are more of a conquest than
It's bragworthy. Women can't be trusted. Women are the enemy. I mean, if you get married, you're stupid. To me, the worst advice they give is don't ever marry a single mom, because now you get saddled with kids that aren't yours, and she's just looking for security and all that, and don't be this dumb guy. I mean, what horrific, ungodly counsel that these toxic men. I mean, that's the epitome of toxic masculinity, right there. I mean, what horrific counsel that is. So you're going to condemn a young mom for wanting some stability in her life and a godly presence of a husband and a dad in her home. Why is that a bad thing? Has she made some decisions that were poor? Sure, maybe so. So have you. Again, as you put notches in your bedpost so you can brag to your friends about how many women you've slept with, and you won't settle down and be responsible and do the things that mature men do, like raise families, in the name of, I need to make my first million by 25 or I'm a failure. Like, that's just idiocy. What's wrong with you? But that is the current young male social media culture right there. And it is from the pit of hell.
And you can look at Hollywood, and you can use them as an example. Money does not bring happiness.
That's stupid.
No, it's time and time again. They either become broke, multiple marriages, alcohol, drug addiction, over and over and over again.
I mean, I listened to a short video of one guy who said, if you haven't earned $10 million, if you don't have $10 million, not even earned it, by the time you're 30, you're a failure. Well, cool.
4 failures in this room.
That I'm a failure.
Hey, speak for yourself. I had it when I was 30, and I don't have it anymore.
I don't have it now. I spent it all. Yeah, what a stupid benchmark of success in life. If I don't have this much by 30, like 30? 30? Really? 30? Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? Most aren't even getting married now till in their 30s and all that, so that they can pursue stupid goals like that.
The gods of this world, money, sex.
Yep.
I mean, all the sins that we love and are so much.
So
fun.
when our culture condemns toxic masculinity, that's what they ought to be condemning. It's that. It's not men trying to be responsible and mature and leading in their homes and leading in their churches. That's not toxic masculinity. That's biblical masculinity. That needs to be recovered. Because everybody benefits when godly men do that.
Yeah,
everyone.
That needs to be at the top of our totem pole.
Yes,
is raising your children up in a godly home, and everything else should be like dominoes after that. It kind of falls into place.
I say it around our church and with my children. When men lead in a good and godly fashion, everyone benefits. Their wife, their kids, their church, their neighbors, their society. Everybody wins. When men fail at that, everybody loses. And we all know that. But it's sexist to admit that reality. But we all know this is true. When men screw it up, everybody loses. But when men get it right, everybody wins. So let's do that.
The statistics are there too.
I was just getting ready to say that.
On the men, I don't know what they are, but a huge percentage. If the man goes to church, a large percentage of the family will follow.
The family follows.
Versus if a child goes, it's a very small percentage. Women go, it's a small percentage. But I mean, there's statistics for that.
Yep. Yeah, more than not. If you can reach the man, you get the whole family.
Yep.
Man, and I see that in my youngest son, Guy. He's been going to church since he was born, and he loves going to church now. He loves the youth group. He loves his friends there. And he's not in the norm when he's in the school system.
Oh, no.
No, I mean, he's... it's not a normal life in the school system for him. Yep. But he's found people asking him questions about God. Katz is another one.
Yeah.
Guy said that a lot of people ask him questions. Apparently, he's a pretty bright kid.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. He's really smart.
Yeah. And that's true. These Christian kids, they're in the minority, even in the heartland of America and Central Illinois, where we are. We're in a conservative bubble. We're in a fairly religious culture. And by that, I mean bland, vanilla, Roman Catholic religious culture. But there is at least some awareness of God and church in our region.
Vanilla, Roman. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just thinking about that.
There's a lot of, a lot of modifiers on
Is that a
on
Ben and Jerry's flavor?
It is.
Coming-
it is. It's delicious.
Coming soon. Bland vanilla Roman Catholic.
Yeah, I've
Crunch.
never had heretical ice cream, but it's really good. But even in that reality, Christian kids dedicated to their families and to their churches are rare and are the minority.
And I see you
That's
living
true
this out
everywhere.
because we were having a conversation just upstairs about Nathan. I would say
My son, Nathan.
your son
Yeah.
Nathan is the main thing for Nathan is that he marries a godly woman,
Mm-hmm.
is a godly man, and we were talking about his career choices and if he wants to be a welder, go for it.
Yeah. He wants to go into the trades. He wants to get married. He wants to have a family, and he wants to do that young. His mom and dad did that. We got engaged at 19, married at 20, pregnant at 21, child at 22. And now here we are 22 and a half years later. We have a 20-year-old getting ready to turn 21 as a senior in college. And we have an 18-year-old son. He's 17, getting ready to turn 18 next month, who are starting their adult lives earlier than their counterparts, their contemporaries. They're not wanting to build their career and wait till they're 35 before they get married. We had all of our children before then, all 4 of them. Like we were well into parenting at that. I can't imagine someone just getting married at 35.
Oh, and that's the norm now.
It is. That's the average. Now, Christians skew that. Christians typically get married much, much younger for a variety of reasons, a higher value of family, a higher concern for not wanting to commit sexual immorality, and all of that, which is wonderful. That ought to be celebrated, not avoided.
Can I just say, just because I just had this experience, my daughter got married, came to us and said she was getting married at 18 years old, which she had been, this was her only boyfriend, first boyfriend, been together since ever. But my wife and I, our initial reaction was, no, you can't. You're too young. I mean, that's just the knee jerk, because I think that's what we have been taught to believe through society too.
Yep.
And she was determined. And so obviously we stood behind her and we were happy and all that. But it wasn't until later on I was like, man, I should have been encouraging that, but right. I mean, it's just, I can't explain it, but yeah, that's just, that's ingrained in me to try and push your kids for greatness, not for family. Like, I mean, that's, and that's what I should be doing.
Because that is greatness.
That is greatness. Absolutely.
That's the better
it
form.
is. Yeah.
Success is fine. There's, and I hope everybody experiences success. We live in America. I mean, you should. You've got all the factors that enable that. Anybody ought to be able to do that. But don't make life about that.
No,
Don't
as
make
Christians, we shouldn't be pursuing.
Well, you have
that.
to go and get your 4-year degree. You have to build your career. You have to establish yourself financially. Then start worrying about getting married and having a family later, if you so choose. You're just delaying the blessing that is family.
Yeah.
Stress, sure. Challenges, sure. But you're delaying, what John mentioned earlier, like this gift that it is to be a dad.
Yeah.
Why put that off for half your adulthood?
Yeah.
My wife and I grew up together, not as kids. We met at 18. But I'm now 43. Well over half my life has been with her. I matured as an adult alongside her. You can't trade that for anything.
Yeah.
No, that's beautiful.
That's a different
it really
experience.
Is. I mean, you guys were kids.
We were absolute kids. We say all the time, because our oldest, Grace, is now older than we were when we got married. And she's single, looking for a godly man, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If there's anybody out there looking for a godly man,
He was looking at me. I'm
she's
like,
gonna
I'm
love that I
taken.
did
She
that.
told me, yeah, she
No
told me
one
the other
tell
day,
her
she's
that I
like,
did
my
that."
dad keeps trying to fix me up with people.
I do.
By the way, your kids hate that.
I was going to say, if you want to guarantee she won't end up
Oh,
with a
yeah.
guy,
I
I was like,
definitely
yeah,
pick
Grace,
him.
so am I.
Yeah, absolutely. She.
I got your back. I'm her wingman.
She's a catch. Tell me. Let me tell you, she really is highly driven. I mean, she's wonderful in every way imaginable.
I'm actually a wingman for
and you
hire.
have a great
if anybody
father-in-law.
needs one.
Oh yeah, I do.
Best.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a
I'll help you.
great family, married into a great
No, I
family.
was saying Grace. Grace is.
Grace. Oh yeah,
would
yeah. If
have-
you marry her,
yeah.
you've got like the world's greatest father-in-law.
Father-in-law,
Like
right.
that's my job. Yeah, I'm here for you. John, don't do that.
So now I have reversed course, and I'm actually trying to support my daughter, which she's not pregnant, but they intend to have kids, and I'm pushing her to pull back from what she's wanting to do and seriously consider homeschooling. I mean, because that is what's important.
Yeah, these again, it's all about values. These things matter more. It's a good thing that needs to be championed among people of faith. Again, look at how the world does this. It's absolutely broken. I mean, it's terrible how the world does this. How about we set a better example?
Yeah.
How about we do such a good job at this that the world looks at us and goes, their families are way better than ours.
Yeah.
Their marriages are way better than ours. Their kids turn out way better than
If
our
we can
kids.
raise up a few or a few
Yes.
dozen among thousands of what's being
I mean,
churned out of
imagine the difference. I mean, that's how you're a light in the darkness.
The love of sin is so powerful, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Man, to give up the lusts of the world, it's very difficult.
It's hard stuff.
Yeah.
Man.
Are you ever going
Well-
to do that, you think, Guy?
I'd like to think I have. Do you know something that I
of
don't?
course. Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Yeah, he chopped down that tree a long time ago.
Yeah, there you go.
Or
But think about how
something-
challenging it is.
I don't know
So
what that
even
means.
even at our age,
You'll figure it
Guy, we're old men now. We're older than these guys. So we're old men.
We're the same age.
Yeah, but you're so immature that I just feel so much
Yeah.
older.
Definitely.
Right?
That's fair.
Definitely.
I'm the baby here, right?
You are the baby here.
Oh,
Yeah.
young little baby.
How hard it is even for us as middle-aged adults to fight against the sweep of culture and all of the attitudes of culture and how our world operates in terms of money, in terms of family, to actively fight against that. Imagine how hard that is for a teenager.
Yeah.
How hard that is for a college-age young adult who has this God-given desire to get married and have children and all that, and everyone in her world, everyone in his world is telling them that's stupid. Go the course everybody else is going. That's the answer to all of your problems. That's really hard, and that's nothing new. So my wife, when she was in high school, her publicly stated goal in life was to be a wife and a mom, because that's what her mom was, wife and a mom. She didn't really give much thought to career or anything like that. She wanted to be a wife and a mom. Well, in a high school class, they were talking about this, and she stated in class out loud, I want to be a wife and a mom. And she was openly mocked by students and teacher
I believe that.
for that being her life goal. Mocked. So what kid is going to want to go public with that?
Right.
When this is the reaction you get, even from supposed Christian family members who go, "Why would you do that? No, you need to go to college and get a degree you don't need. You need to go and you establish yourself, and you need to do all this stuff first. Why would you do this?" That's a mistake.
Yeah. In a world that has no objective standards.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
Look at the broken world around you. Why do what they're doing? It doesn't make any sense, because you're going to end up in the same place. You get on the same road, you're going to end up in the same destination. Pick a different road.
yeah.
I'm so proud my daughter didn't listen to us.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Good
our
for her.
whole family of Christians,
Yeah.
her grandparents, her parents, I mean, everybody.
Well, all of us have taken her cue, and none of us listen to you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we're glad
I
you're on the
know, wait.
podcast. Yeah, hold on.
What did you just say? I'm sorry.
Was there
Let's see what you did
I'm
there.
quitting. I'm out.
was there any big takeaways in, because we've talked about the absentee father, which humanity does a great job of, but were there any big takeaways in your research on like how privileged we are to have an eternal father? I mean, is there?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I understand. I never dealt with the issue of I'm projecting my earthly father onto my heavenly father.
You did.
I really didn't. My dad had certainly had his issues and mistakes and foolishness and all of that. But he didn't abandon. He didn't leave. He was there. He was responsible. He worked and provided and took us to church. Best thing he ever did was we were in church. Whether he believed it or not is we can figure that one out in eternity. But we were there, and that mattered and made a difference. He passed away earlier this year, this spring. So he's gone, and even in the midst of some of the challenging things I dealt with my father and in our fights and arguments over the years and things like that, I never did project that onto a heavenly father. But I understand that a lot of people do because their dads were just terrible.
And you've witnessed that in some counseling.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very common. They hate the idea. Yeah, they hate the idea that God is father because they hate their father for whatever reasons. I get all of that, but when you can embrace that this is who God is, and yes, maybe your earthly father really blew it. This one never will. Your heavenly father never will.
What'd you say in your sermon? He was not the reflection of your earthly father, but the perfection.
Yeah, quote from Louis Giglio.
That's great.
I mean, that's just a good one.
Yeah.
He's perfect. Which of the points that I made out of the Sermon on the Mount about the character qualities of God our Father, perfect is my favorite one. He's perfect. He will never mess this up. He will never screw up and have to apologize later. He's never going to lose his temper. He's perfect in every way imaginable. And that is the comfort of my life. He is a perfect heavenly father who always gets this right. None of us dads get it right. He does every single time. And yeah, privilege is the right word. God's people are absolutely privileged.
In our small group here of 4, we all had the privilege of having a father and a mother in our household.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were raised by a godly father, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he attends Broadway now, but even at your youngest,
Yep.
John, you
Yes.
also?
Yep.
Yeah. My dad took me to church. So yeah, I guess I was too. We didn't pray at the table or anything like that, but
Yeah. The way that I say it is I grew up in a church attending home, not necessarily a Christian home. My parents both had their issues. They both came out of pretty rough backgrounds and vastly different, but also children of the 60s. And they were fairly hippie-ish there for a bit, and they carried some of that over into their adult life. And both died very young. Mom at 60, dad at 67, because of really poor decisions they had made earlier on in their life and even up into their final years. But they did the best they could with what they had. And again, they loved us. They did. They provided for us. And the best gift they ever gave is we were in church every Sunday, every single week. I was required to go to youth group when I was in high school. It was not an option. Anytime there was a special event, we were there. We skipped church one weekend a year, purposely, because my parents hated what was called Faith Promise Sunday. You guys remember when they did those? It was like the mission fundraising Sunday, and my parents hated that, and we never went.
Escape that guilt of promising a check
I guess,
every week.
Yeah. But outside of that, they were very good in that regard, and I'm eternally grateful.
Yeah.
For that.
Well, didn't you say that you were saved in the backseat of your car listening to a sermon?
Well, it was a news report. It was a radio news report.
But they were listening to Christian radio, obviously.
No. So I mean, I don't even think we had a Christian radio station. There was an end of the world prophecy in 1993. It's actually Benny Hinn who made it.
Yeah.
End of the world prophecy, and it made the news that so and so has said. And I had to look it up. I didn't know who Benny Hinn was in 1993 when I was 13, and I was listening to this news report that Jesus is going to return, the world is going to end, and it scared me. And that put me on the path to salvation. Because the thought of him returning scared me to death because I knew I wasn't ready. I don't know how I knew that. I mean, I grew up in church. And the next Sunday, I walked forward to the fourth verse of the invitation song and was immersed into Christ the next Sunday morning in July of 1993.
Good thing it went for 4 verses.
Good
what
thing.
If, what if it ended early?
So, I mean, I knew
You
I
might
was
not
going
be here
up.
today.
My dad had called the preacher that morning and all that. So, I had talked to my parents about it.
Okay.
And, but I was so nervous. I waited till the end of the fourth verse. And the preacher, it used to be where the preacher would have the hymn book and he'd come down and he would kind of lead that invitation song a little bit. And he kept looking back. We were a back row Baptist. We sat in the very back row, and he would sing a line and he would look up at me like,
we can do this all day. Ian, come on.
We will sing just as I am until you come.
Well, I think that's it for me. You guys got anything else?
Nope.
We're celebrating Christmas.
We are. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably won't do this next week, will we?
I don't know. Why not?
Well, we can't
Why?
because we start early on.
Why don't we talk about this
that's
not
right.
on the podcast?
Let's talk about our personal schedules.
This is what people
Yeah.
like about this podcast.
I'm going to be out of town.
Is it?
I think.
Our
See,
family.
we
Our family's
can't.
going
He's
on
gonna be out
a,
of
I've heard
town.
that
a
from
little
no one.
Christmas trip between Christmas and New Year. Our crew's leaving town,
Okay.
so I won't be here. I mean, you guys can.
We'll have
do
family
it,
in town with
whatever.
us.
So apparently, there's no podcast next week.
Yeah.
We'll come back in the
I've
new
talked
year.
about your son.
We'll see you in
joining
2
us.
weeks, everybody.
I talked about your son joining us. Maybe he'd like to join us.
We really put him on the spot, aren't you?
He was all about it. You guys, thanks for joining us. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Chrysler.
Yep. Bye, guys. See you next year.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that the first next year joke?
it,
dad
for
joke?
me?
Well done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done.
See you guys next year.
Bye.
Lord willing. John's loser.